Thank you for listening. This is the Legends Podcast by All Day Vinyl, and I'm your host, Scott Dudelson. After you finish this episode, please subscribe, rate, and check us out on Instagram and YouTube at All Day Vinyl. Today I'm excited to present this special episode focusing on Warren Zevon's albums Life Will Kill Ya, released in 2000, and My Rides Here, released in 2002. For this episode, I'm joined by two of Warren Zevon's key collaborators during this period in his career. Jorge Calderón, one of Warren's closest collaborators and co-writer and bass player on Life Will Kill Ya. Also with me is Noah Scot Snyder, who is Warren's sidekick in the studio, serving as engineer-mixer for My Rides Here and Zevon's follow-up album, The Wind, for which he and Jorge both won a Grammy Award for their co-production. Gentlemen, thank you dudes for coming. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks for having us.
So last episode we focused a lot on Warren's early career, from the early days of Jorge, you meeting Warren, and up through Mr. Bad Example. And now we're going to start here, talk about Life Will Kill Ya. And I kind of want to start with maybe, Jorge, you could give me just an idea of what Warren's career looked like at that time when he was preparing to do Life Will Kill Ya.
Well, he hadn't done a record for a while. I think it was, he was hurting and he couldn't get a record deal. You know, he had gone from one label to another. So I don't know, I'm not sure how many years before he got the contract with Artemis label for Life Will Kill You. I think it could have been more than 5 or 6, or maybe even more. I don't know. I should check. But so he got after sending, he had recorded a lot of that record at his home little studio. Anatomy of a Headache Studios, he called it. And he had done everything but it didn't have bass or drums. But everything else he had done, right? And he had a tape, cassette, or whatever it was at the time. ADAT. Oh, that's right, ADAT. So he sent it to people, and they were going, no, I don't think so. So finally, Danny Goldberg, who was running this label, Artemis Records, he finally said, give him a deal. So he set up to do the record. At that point, he had like 10 songs or 8 songs. I don't know. He needed a few songs for the record. That's when he called me to write a few more, and we did write Porcelain Monkey and Fistful of Rain.
And how did Warren view his career at that point? I mean, it was at that point probably 15, 20 years since Werewolves was a hit.
Well, that's some kind of question, because he never could stop doing what he did and trying and doing and putting all his effort into writing the stuff that he wanted to write, and it being good to his standards. So, but he also knew that at that point he felt like nobody cared about it, or it would go over people's heads. It was frustrating, but he put his heart and soul into Life Will Kill You.
Yeah.
A lot of great songs, and plus the ones we put together were really great, and he loved them, I loved them, and so then it was completed. So when we went to Cambridge, Boston, to record it with these two producers, Kenneth Slade and Paul Calderon, and the fact that they have worked with, done a record with Radiohead, I don't know, maybe more, but Warren loved Radiohead at that time. He just kept telling me how great Radiohead was, and I said, "Who is that?" And so he turned me on to them.
And who got them involved?
I think it was Danny Goldberg in the label, because the thing was that those two guys did Radiohead, did Hole. And they did the Pixies.
Stuff.
Right, they were doing stuff.
They were doing stuff.
Exactly. At the time, they thought these guys can resurrect, Warren with the stuff, and that's how it ended up. But what sold it to Warren was Radiohead. He went, yeah, they did Radiohead. Yeah, I want
And I'd add one thing just to, in contrast to like the discussion of how the records were getting made earlier, because this, relates directly to where he was in his, there were, doing the, recording it to ADAT at home, and Anatomy of a Headache, like there was a practical nature now to making a record that certainly didn't exist in those days, and
before,
and a sort of practical business like approach to it in terms of, I don't have unlimited budget to spend on it. What's the best thing decisions I can make to get the best thing here,
And also he could get it exactly how he wanted it, because when he prepared those tracks, that's a separate thing. Yeah, it's a separate thing.
Because it is called Anatomy of a Headache, but it could have been called Splendid Isolation because it provided that for him. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
totally.
It sang by himself, and nobody sing it again.
Yeah.
Was he perfectionist on the music? I know he was on the lyrics, which you've mentioned, but on the music.
Oh, of course. He worked on. It was like I had conversations with him through the years, and I would go like, man, I'm working on this thing, and I just, Jorge, get back to work. You know what I mean? Like it's you work. If he didn't have the melody yet, or the structure to a song, or the way the music is going to be, because he would write lyrics first, and when we wrote songs, we would do lyrics first. So putting the music, he would work on the music until it was perfect for that song.
And what were the first tracks in Life Will Kill You that he came to you with to collaborate on?
Well, when he called me to come to his place to come up with something, the way we worked, we just sit down on the couch and we just talk. We would talk, laugh, and tell stories, and out of a conversation, things would come up that he would light up, and so I had a little, I should have brought it, but it was a little notebook, because when we wrote lyrics for the song, we would pass stuff around, and when it was the right thing, then he would be pacing around, I would be sitting on the couch, so when it was something we could use, then I would write it down. So I'd keep tabs of what was being written, and it was a go, So this little notebook had a tear in the front, and I had glued a postcard. I had gone to Graceland when I was playing with David Lindley, and so I put this postcard to cover that hole in the thing. And the postcard was a shot of Elvis's jungle room, and there's a table with this monkey, a white monkey with big black eyes. It's a porcelain monkey. So he said, "What is that?" And "What is that?" I said, "That's the porcelain monkey." And he said, "What do you mean?" And so Elvis's jungle room, and he was just fascinated by it. And he went away, came back with a large page, and at the top said "Porcelain Monkey." He had written it. He said, "This is what we're writing." So what we did is I started talking, right? I started talking to him about, oh man, I just saw this documentary of all the mafia, his Memphis mafia guys talking about him. He was dead, talking after his death, and they're all kind of like, oh yeah, man, he was so messed up, and he was taking this and that, and I was looking at him, and I'm telling Warren, I'm looking at these guys like, could any of you help the guy? Could you have tried to get him down from all the pills and the stuff, but they were all afraid, they were going to get fired or something. It was ridiculous. So I went on and on about my feelings about this documentary, and the more I talked, the more the song kind of he started saying, so he started writing he was an accident waiting to happen. Most accidents happen at home. He should have gone out more often. He should have answered the phone or something, and then from then on we started writing more and more, and that's the way the after line he would say a line, I would say a line, and we finished the song. But that was the gist. The second verse is my favorite verse, and from a shotgun shack, singing Pentecostal hymns, to the wrought iron gate, to the TV room. The TV room is that room. It wasn't the jungle room, it was the TV room, sorry. He had a little world, it was smaller than your hand. It's a rockabilly ride from the glitter to the gloom. That's my favorite verse. But, we just went deep on that one.
Yeah, that's great.
and this guy in Memphis actually said that was the best Elvis song that he ever heard because it was so true. It was like not a cruel look at Elvis. It was just a true look at what he went through. Left behind by the latest trends.
Yeah.
Eating fried chicken with his regicidal friends. I told the way that happened. I told Warren. I said at that point we needed another little thing. And I said, maybe we should use the word regicide because these guys really killed him and they didn't help him. So he says, oh, you mean like eating fried chicken with his regicidal friends? And I went, yeah. That's how his mind worked.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be a word. Bring up a word and he would just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was genius at it, man.
Yeah, it was dark in
Really?
it. And the album's got some of his, I would say, most pointed songs on Death, Next to the Wind. Do you remember hearing My Shit's Fucked Up? Or the creation of that one?
No, but because all that was done. When he called me to work on these songs with him, he had already done all these other songs. So he just sent me a cassette. And I went home and I listened to all this stuff. I said, man, this is great stuff. But My Shit's Fucked Up was like a surprise.
Yeah.
Because he hadn't gone there yet,
Yeah.
The shit hit, he already had the shit hit the fan, with Lawyers, Guns, and Money, and he had done other stuff.
His own mortality. And this is
but
about
he wasn't afraid. I mean, that first song,
I'll take it.
I was
in the
house when
burned down. Yeah. Yeah.
It starts with the shit, too,
Yeah. I mean, he must have had a sense. We're talking 2 years before, maybe 3 years before he was diagnosed with cancer. He must have had a sense that something is not right.
Well, and I was just going to say, because he didn't go to the doctor.
No.
So there was no, Dr. Stan, his dentist, famously was the only guy he ever consulted about his health.
Exactly.
So there was certainly no one to tell him his shit was fucked up.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have known in a million years because he wasn't consulting anyone about the matter.
Exactly. Yeah. It was, but My Shit's Fucked Up is a great little song.
Yeah, it's so good. And
It's a beautiful song, man.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so is Don't Let Us Get Sick, which you told me recently that Jackson Browne has been covering at his concerts.
Jackson started his show at the Pantages last year. It was a surprise. I went to see him, and he just came out alone with an electric guitar and sang Don't Let Us Get Sick, and it was, beautiful, man.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of working on I Was in the House When the House Burned Down?
Yeah. We got the track with Winston and me, and then Warren wanted me to sing this harmony with him, which was really high, and I had to sing it in full voice, and it was funny because I was straining myself singing this thing, which is good in rock and roll. You got to do that, If it don't hurt, it don't rock. So I was doing my thing, and Warren was just like, do it again, and he was just fucking with me because he knew that it was high and I was struggling, and he was like, Jorge, it's good, but give me another one. And I said, man, are you fucking crazy? What are you? You're like, you're like abusing me. What are you? What am I, like your boy in prison? I'm in the cell with you, and you're making me do things. And I went into this whole prison thing with him, and he was cracking up, and he just was writing with it and just like making up shit about like being in prison with some guy. And so that's how we ended up with the term Prison Grove, which we used later in The Wind for a song, a serious song, not a joke, but that's how it went, like, yeah, it's just that prison love, man. Just give me another one, that kind of thing. We're just laughing constantly.
Amazing.
During that. But I got it done. It sounds good. It's
great.
rock and roll.
And was that recorded in Cambridge with
Paul and Ken?
Yeah,
and they were great to work with. I mean, those guys, Paul Calderon was mainly the hands-on, the board guy, but also Kenneth could be too. But they were just good. There was a good humor in the whole thing. Good vibes, with them. It was work and it was I liked them a lot, and good sounds too. They got. It's a shame that record. It would be great to have the masters, but the masters are nowhere to be found, which is strange because if it was, for example, if it wasn't for Noah, that kept a copy of the masters for My Right Is Here and for The Wind, it's good to have copies. Somehow, Life Will Kill You. There's nowhere to be found, and it's a label. The label Artemis went through changes, and Danny Goldberg left, and whoever was then it fell apart, right? And it went bankrupt or something.
So that's everything. That's like the multi-tracks, the mixes. So like that means that there's nobody out there who owns anything for Life Will Kill You that you don't own.
Wow.
Yeah,
exactly. So just a master from a CD or just
the best copy of it out there is a CD.
Yeah. And it's terrible because nowadays where you can remaster something really great, like Noah with got the Wind on remastered for vinyl and for digital. You can do that. If we could have only done it for Life Will Kill You, it would have been great because it would enhance the sound tremendously. But the label, they didn't take care of the art of the guy that they signed. Let's put it frankly that way. How can you do that? And I'm not blaming this guy or the other one, but I'm saying the label. Who is the label? Who's taking care of protecting Warren Zevon's art?
And
Life
so
Will Kill You.
Warren says to me when I'm 25 years old or whatever, like, you need to take care of this. If you don't take care of this, nobody's going to.
Wow. Exactly.
And I thought, oh, okay. Like, if you say so. And I thought to be honest, I thought for sure he was wrong.
Right.
I thought that definitely there had to be adults in charge of all this stuff who were going to do a great job.
They're not.
Yeah, sadly, there are adults. They're just high and inept.
Yeah.
But I did it because he told me to.
Wow, that's why you kept The Wind in My Rights Here.
Yeah,
wow.
That's why I kept digital copies of all of it and then by the end it turned out like I was the only one who had them.
Exactly.
Incredible.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, he was right.
Yeah, he was right.
How did he know that?
And also, Noah kept copies of stuff that he did, little bits that he did on his computer and everything. He kept everything. Because if not, nobody cares. You see, when people are going bankrupt at a label, everybody's running, and nobody cares. Who knows who has maybe nobody knows.
Yeah, and they didn't single them out. They lost everything. It was a full on. Well, they didn't have anything.
Right.
And
it's a shame, dude. It's a shame because reissue of My Rides Here or The Wind, remastered is great. And an album such as great as this one, it's a shame.
Yeah. And, you mentioned you kept copies of the little pieces. Is there a trove of Zevon unreleased stuff from this general era? Between The Wind and Life Will Kill You? Yeah,
well, I have some stuff. But it's kind of represents a sliver because, like, at the Life Will Kill You time, he had the ADAT machine, so it was just a period of time after that, through the sort of middle of the Wind, when basically he stopped making new music.
Yeah, well, the Wind was, we'll talk about it, but it was like, we were working against the clock.
Right.
And we were just getting the songs. There was no extra, they had the song, and, there's little pieces of stuff.
Yeah, there's little bits of stuff.
So bits of stuff, and if there's a release of the Wind, it's going to have a couple of extra things, but not many.
And sometimes what it was a path to a song. So it was a earlier iteration.
Right.
Something became something else along the way.
Exactly.
Or in the extreme, like happened to the song "The Wind."
Yeah.
Like the Wind, the song got supplanted by a single line in another song.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and kind of like stuff like that. All those boxes they put out of Dylan's boxes now. That early stuff where the two songs became kind of one. The one that it's mastered and everything, but you see the process of songwriting and different lyrics and stuff. And some people like that. Warren used to hate all that stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the past episode. I find that stuff fascinating.
Yeah.
What was Warren's take on the album after it was released?
He thought it was great. It was his best work for years, So he was really into it, and hoping that it would break him back into the. That's why he did High Life.
High Life, yeah.
Yeah, back in the High Life again, a cover of the Steve Winwood song, because of that. It's like, this is what I want. I want to get back.
Yeah.
I'm coming back, and it's a very good message to put into this album, because it was truly, he was coming back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he did a good version too.
Yeah, it's great.
It's very real.
And
Noah, were you familiar with Warren's music at this time?
I was not. When I got introduced to Warren, really was to help him with his studio, right? The guy that I would buy gear from at West LA Music, back in the day, was the same. Was one of his other clients was Warren, and he was having a hard time making Warren happy, which would happen to people sometimes. And had sent over somebody to help him, because he had liked this ADAT recording he had done, and so he wanted to go even further, I think, in taking it into his own hands, like completely, the production process. So Pro Tools was like this brand new thing that you could have,
right?
And that people were really making records on it, and so he bought it, I got referred to him to help him with that, and he was, we got along, and I came and saw a show at the Wiltern, maybe, and that just led pretty quickly to me helping him out in the studio, engineering stuff and whatnot. And like, I certainly was familiar with him and his music, more the catalog than keeping up with the latest things, but obviously I quickly tried to get up to speed, and he, to be clear, when I met him, I was terrified of him, like totally, utterly terrified.
Was there anything that gave you that sense the first time you met him?
Yeah, everything gave me that sense. There's two things. First of all, it should be noted that Warren, first of all, he wasn't, like, you pretty much knew where you were at with Warren. It wasn't hard to tell, right? So I wasn't terrified of him because in fact, he really loved me, but I just couldn't tell. Like, no, he wanted to destroy me. He was tolerating me because I could fix some shit at his studio, but really what he thought was, like, this hotshot kid, barely has time for me, and doesn't want to fix my shit and won't answer my phone calls or whatever. And but in reality, like, he'd call and I'd see his number on my phone and I'd be like, my heart would like start like, hi Warren, but through the process, I mean, like I was pretty green. I was young. I was 25.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, it's worth noting that he invested in me, on upside, on potential, not on my accomplishments at that moment in time, which probably suited him for where he was at. But he, like I said, I came in there doing as a tech, and by the time I don't know, maybe 12 months into our relationship, I mixed and engineered a record for him.
Yep.
So was My Rides Here he working on at the time you met him?
Yeah, so he, I guess, it must have been just after he finished
Life Will
Kill You, because he wanted to upgrade from this ADAT,
right.
which ADAT, for those who don't know, was like you were recording to a VHS cassette.
Right.
And it was some primitive digital thing, and I think he had eight tracks, yeah. So with Pro Tools, there were two things. It was unlimited, and there's nonlinear editing, which means you can copy, paste, cut, move. And, Warren's mind, the sort of obsessive compulsive part of it, liked to organize things. And so we had some really tidy session. He would make like colors and or arrange the things in certain ways to make it look like he would spend hours. I'm not kidding, hours.
Yep.
Hours making the reds do that and then the greens,
Oh boy. That was our guy.
Yeah, that was our guy. But he wanted to take control over as much of it as he could. I think he had learned to not be super crazy about sitting around the studio all day for a variety of reasons, but including, like, one of the things he made me promise him very early on was don't ever ask me to sing something again because you have a microphone you like.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah.
He wasn't into that.
He'd been through that already.
Yeah, and that's fair. I had to respect that as a 25-year-old. Like, okay, he doesn't want me to come in here and say,
try shit.
And partly what he was saying was, like, when I've gone through this thing and I'm telling you this is the vocal, like, this is the vocal that's going on the record.
Yeah. That's how I sang it, and that's how it's staying. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the Pro Tools, he could already go in there and do the things that, micro things he might want to do. And not that it was precious and I couldn't change it, but certainly I couldn't say, like, I think you could sing the bridge better, man.
Right.
And I heard this, I was at another session with somebody else singing on this mic, man, and you got to sing on this one.
Yeah.
You didn't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about My Rides Here is it's co-written a lot with various authors, and Warren is obviously a very literary dude, read a lot. He played with a lot of these authors in the Rock Bottom Remainders. I'm curious if you ever talked to either of you guys about co-writing with people who don't necessarily write music.
I think I should take the front end of this question. He should take the back end of it because I was there while he was dealing with these guys, but then he had to talk to Jorge afterwards to get himself straight again. So Jorge will tell you how it all turned out.
And it's really notable, right? I mean, we're talking Hunter Thompson and Mitch Albom. Who else was on there?
Paul Muldoon.
Paul Muldoon.
Paul Muldoon.
Yeah, so like serious heavies in.
He wanted to do that on that album, but at the end of the road, I mean, he always had problems with everybody, especially Hunter, because he was a very hard guy to.
Do you have any Hunter Thompson, Warren Zevon stories?
I wish I did. And he played me some messages. Answering machine messages that Hunter had left, and they were like insane. But I couldn't tell you what it said, but he was like raving and mad, and there, you did this, you did that, fuck you, and all this stuff, and it was like, so at the end of the road, when he finished My Rides Here, he told me that he just spread himself thin, writing with this one and the other one and the other one, especially because he would tell me that writing with another musician songwriter, like for example, he would say, writing with you, it's easy. It's always been easy. You know, we think of something or we write it, it's no big deal. Or we can discard something, or you know, it's not a fight about one line, you know. But when you write with writers or poets or journalists, or you know, and he loved to do that, but he said it was always hard and it's always bad, and they always ended up fighting with each other, and it was a total hassle. So when we started The Wind, he told me, I want to write this. It wasn't even The Wind yet, because he didn't know about his health situation. He said, I want to write this with you. Let's do, you know, let's write a whole bunch of songs, do a record, you know.
Yeah.
And be easy. I'm tired of hassling with people.
I mean, I think the reality is that, like, you know, bookending that experience on My Rides Here with writing only songs with you on either side. The reality is that when Jorge and Warren were together, like, you guys were just compatible in an incredible way where you could write songs together, and it was always good feeling and good experience and good songs. Yeah. And he was trying to it was, you know, I imagine it's a little like being in a band with somebody. It's like you're managing this relationship, right? And he's managing a relationship with Mitch Albom and Paul Muldoon and Hunter S. Thompson. Every day he's getting a call from a different high-profile writer with big ideas telling him they hate the second verse, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And also, what he told me, which is funny and it's true, is that when you write with writers, like novelists, you know, he wrote with McGuane anyway, he wrote with writers that they write too much. You know, a song is like a song. It's like a line here, line. You know, it's the economy of words in a song is what is gold. But with these guys, they want to say this much. He said, dude, we only have this verse. You know, we don't have like what do you know? So it's always a chiseling away and trying to make something into a smaller thing. Taking a big stone into a smaller.
Yeah, and then you guys understand that about that, whereas someone,
totally,
you know, someone's writing mission may not be that same thing. Although he might have one day found a writer who was trying to be as sparse as Hemingway, and you know what I mean.
I don't think, you know, I mean he had fun with what's the I'm sorry to forget.
Hyson.
Yeah.
With Carl Hyson.
Carl.
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah.
Great guy, and he had fun with him.
They did have fun.
But still, he says that writers, you know, have too much to say, and we're trying to, you know, but he had fun with Carl.
Did Warren ever have ambition to be a writer himself, do a novel, or?
You know, I think at one point I read some kind of, hard-boiled kind of detective thing. It was like, because he was back in the day. I mean, we were both one of the things that we shared in common was our love for Raymond Chandler and Russ McDonald and all those noir movies, noir books, and Private Eye stuff. So I think that at one point I read like a couple of 3 pages that he had started writing something like that. But no, he was a songwriter.
Amazing. And one of my favorite songs on the album is on My Rides Here is the one he did with Letterman and Paul Schaefer, which was Hit Somebody, the hockey song. Yeah. Amazing. He goes up there with Bill Lee and Boom Boom Mancini as two of the great sports songs that Warren Zevon's written. Is there any backstory to how? Well, obviously Letterman was a huge Zevon fan, but how it came to be that the Tonight Show band and Letterman make a cameo on that song?
I think that was a little bit of a tweener project between Life Will Kill Ya and My Rides Here. And My Rides Here, the only thing we didn't record, the only thing was we didn't record at Anatomy of a Headache, where we did a little string section on Genius, and all the drums were done by Anton in New York. by Anton Fig. And so Warren would, every time he would go out there to sub, we'd do a little more.
I see.
Yeah. But they had hit somebody, the whole thing, they did the whole thing there, and they had that already. And it wasn't Pro Tools. It was the only thing on that record that was just a
tape.
Just a tape.
Wow.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. Maybe I don't know what it was recorded to, but we never had the multi-track. It was a done deal by the time we got it. Yeah, it was a done mix. So maybe he did record it to Pro Tools because they were sending us drums on Pro Tools. But I'm not totally sure about that. But they had already produced and finished that song by the time we started anything else. Yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, when you look at Warren's albums in the 70s and the 80s, there's a cast of amazing, iconic musicians who play with him, whether it's Bob Dylan on Sense Smells of Hygiene or the Eagles dudes on the early albums. And obviously they all came back for The Wind. But was that community still around supporting Warren during these times when he's doing Life Will Kill You and My Ride's Here, the more?
I think that, as far as I know, yeah, they were still around and they were all friends of Warren's, but everybody, they had their careers and they're on the road and and he was trying to survive, making some records, trying to make them on his own. So it wasn't the same thing. In the old days, you can call people to come to the thing and they would get paid, and now there was no money, there was no label, there was no, those days were gone. So he was trying to make records in his house.
Yeah, and to be sure, like My Ride's Here, the reason I didn't get the opportunity to meet Jorge until later,
right,
was because, like I said, he was making it was complicated, pragmatic solutions. He really liked touring with the band. He was doing both with the band and solo tours. Solo tours, obviously, the economics work better, right? You sell just as many tickets, the gross is the same, and there's no one to pay besides yourself. He liked touring with the band, but the guys he had been accustomed to touring with, he couldn't pay them what they were accustomed to getting paid now. There were practical considerations going into it, in that way too, I think, having Jerry Garcia come down to play on one tune is going to blow your whole budget for the record.
Yeah.
Were you around at all during the My Ride's Here sessions?
No, I was on the road a lot at that time, and I wasn't aware that he was doing any of that, and he didn't call me to work on that at all. But after that, he called me out of the blue, and he said, I just finished this record, and let me come around and I'll play you something. And he picked me up at my place, and we went on a ride in his Corvette. He had an old Corvette, gray one. And so he put a cassette of My Ride's Here, and he only played me one song, Genius. And to me, that said that was the one that he was the proudest of. Like, he wanted to share that one song with me and not anything else, and that's all he played. And then he told me, I stretched myself thin again. He told me that. I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to do it easy with you. It's always a joy to write with you. It's always like we're on the same wavelength, and there's no problems or no hassles. Let's do it. Let's do an album of a whole bunch of our songs.
Yeah.
And that's how the idea for The Wind started. It wasn't The Wind, of course. Right. It was just a record.
And we're going to talk all about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
And before we wrap, Noah, you were obviously there and an integral part of My Ride's Here. Do you have is there any key moments with Warren or recollections of recording it that are worth sharing?
I mean, there's the Warren side in terms of his, career and where that album fits in. Like, I understand that much better now than I did at the time, to be honest. At the time, I was so young and green, and like, honestly, what sticks out in my mind most is just the crazy opportunity that this guy gave me, and it's a rough business in a lot of ways, and I just was super fortunate to meet someone who was smart enough or interested enough or perceptive enough, to like check me out.
Yeah.
Not just like my resume or whatever, and we became friends. Like we came to understand each other, and so for me it was just like a fast forward through
rock and roll highway.
Yeah, through boot camp of what it's like to be on these records, but to be really sort of obviously and purposefully mentored by this guy who was very like I said, at first he didn't like me, but once he did like me, like he made you feel like you were the king of the world.
Yeah.
And so he was clear. This is my guy. This, and that it was a profound thing for a young man and young adult trying to make a career. Like I really felt like this. I couldn't ask for anything more than this.
Yeah. What an interesting mentor to have. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate this chat, and we will come back with another episode about the wind.
Great.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
You're
Cheers.
welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Legends Podcast by All Day Vinyl. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate it, share it, subscribe, and follow us and check us out at All Day Vinyl on Instagram and YouTube.